Digital marketing, let's talk about it. And the title of this presentation is Do It Yourself, which, as it turns out, is a bit of a spin on my part. But, you know, what's a marketing session without some spin? I'm Scott Love. I'm the CEO of Codance. We're renamed from New Millennium. We're a service company. We do custom FileMaker work. We also sell an accounting and analytics tool built entirely natively in FileMaker. And I have hobbies and a dog and a wife. Enough of that. Let's not talk about me. Now let's talk about me. I am into steam railroading. This is an actual photo I took on the Cumbers and Toltec Railroad. And so as they're a sort of narrow gauge steam locomotive in southern Colorado, northern New Mexico. So if you're at all into railroading, I encourage you to go for a ride. As you go through my material today with me, I want to encourage you to think about marketing as building an engine, getting something to run. You're never done. You can't just hire some web guy or your second cousin or whatever, build a website, put it out there, and call it even. Marketing is work, and it takes ongoing effort. So we're building an engine today. I'm going to start off by talking about where you should orient your head. Digital marketing is a priority, why it's important to think about. And then I'll help you understand how digital marketing is different from traditional marketing and give you some concepts to hold on to as we venture out into this digital transformation that I've heard so much of the kids talking about. Give you some terms and some concepts, and then I'll walk away at the end of our session. I'll walk you through the steps that I've taken in our business to implement marketing in a way that is appropriate for a small-ish, in my case, small would be the right term, business. And I would say that these bits of advice and so forth scale up a bit, but if you're here representing, say, a $5 million marketing budget, I would love to go to the pool. If you would like the microphone, let me share it with you, and we'll go from there. In 2015, Gartner put out a study that predicted that by 2017, and yes, I recognize this is in the past, that CMOs, Chief Marketing Officers, would be spending more on technology, making more technology decisions than CIOs or CTOs. And Laura McClellan's prediction was wrong by a year. They beat that target in 2016. CMOs were making more technology decisions than CTOs in your organization. So marketing has shifted from a somewhat, this is a oversimplification, but somewhat of a sort of creative focused and broadcasting focused. Hey, what color do I want my logo, and what's my messaging, and how do I design my cool website? To now a very much technology-driven enterprise. And as technology people, that offers us some promise to participate and solve problems in interesting ways in the marketing world. So this talk is both about what marketing you can and should be doing as a business, but it is also about how can problem solvers engage in the marketing world in a way that is relevant to marketers. Spending. By 2020, internet ad spending will by far eclipse all other forms of spending, and it's already at present past television advertising, which is stunning. And by the mid-2020s, internet spending will be more than half of all advertising spending in our world. That's stunning. So if we're not all focused on digital marketing, we need to be. So let me give you a sense of what digital marketing is. There are three concepts. This is one of them. Digital marketing works and is centered around the fact that each of us carries one of these little guys around. We're represented by a device. And so as a service or a product out there can interact with me, they do so through a specific device that represents me as an individual. I've got an email account, I've got a browser history, all that good stuff. So it's less about just sort of broadcasting out into the world, here's an ad that I hope will work, or let me put a billboard up on the highway, and maybe it's going to appeal to the demographic I think drives on that highway or whatnot. Those days are totally gone. We're now interacting with customers on devices. And in doing that, your customer is in charge of that interaction. This is my phone. It's not Google's phone. It's not Facebook's phone or Coca-Cola or whatever. There's a dialogue going on, and I think it's really important for us as marketers to get that. And it's a dialogue that is initiated by and controlled by the customer. They consume your information as they choose and in what medium they choose. Asynchronous is, they also, gone are the days when you can sort of measure a marketing cycle start to finish. You might have someone get to know your company, not choose to buy your product or service, and then come back 6 months, 6 years later, what have you. It's really driven by their timetable as well. David Rogers at Columbia Business School, I was fortunate enough to take some courses from him, said that we're moving from thinking about customers as a lot of individuals to rather as a network that is dynamic and interconnected. So I'm giving you these three concepts. One is digital marketing is device-driven. A device represents an individual, so you're in a dialogue. And that dialogue is controlled by that person and driven by that person. And then thirdly, we've got to think of digital marketing as a network. In other words, customers are talking to each other, influencing each other, and in many cases helping each other make buying decisions and so forth. So it is in that multifaceted, multi-individual world of networks that you're operating as a marketer. Summarize this, you've got it, I hope. Device-centric, dialogue, network-based. And here's the problem. As a marketer, it's like being in a crowded bar. You're trying to make eye contact with the bartender. And in some bars, good luck, right? So how do you rise above the noise? That's the challenge that digital marketers have. There's so much advertising going on. The chart that I showed you a moment ago in terms of spending on advertising, the volume of advertising spent has gone up significantly in the past 10 years. That's why Google and Facebook are as rich as they are. So how do you get through all that noise? Here are the tools that we've got to work with as digital marketers. We've got a website. You can pay to advertise your website on Google or Bing or what have you, Facebook, even LinkedIn and so forth. Search traffic is organic. That's where someone runs a search on a search engine, FileMaker developer or Claris developer, gets results, clicks in the organic side. I hope that's really obvious, and there have been times when I've had to do this presentation and had to explain the difference between paid ads along the top and down the right column and organic search in the middle of the page. You guys hopefully get that. But there is a very strong distinction between how you approach both of those ads, if you will, or presences, if you will, on Google. They need different strategies. Social media is obvious, Facebook, Twitter, et cetera. I'm sure there are more platforms headed our way in life, but obviously there are some dominant ones in the market. Email continues to be one of the most cost-effective ways you can deliver marketing messages to customers. It's super cheap to send out email. If you do it well, it's extremely effective and hard to beat the ROI. So if you're thinking like, oh yeah, email's old school, now I'm going to do my marketing in other ways. Nope, it's old school, yeah, but it's cheap and effective. And then video is obvious as well. The internet is more and more increasingly becoming a video-driven engine. And so if you're not thinking on down the road about what you want to do with video, you should be. I'm going to walk you through some more of this terminology. I've already been using some of it, but I'll get you a little more familiar with it a bit. SEM, you'll hear that, or pay-per-click, you've heard that. Those are paid ads along the top and side on Google and Bing, Facebook, et cetera. SEO, search engine optimization, that's the process where a couple things happen. You work with your own website to optimize it as well as you can, both for individual human users, but also to make it easy for a search engine like Google or what have you to scrape your site and to properly catalog your content. And then search engine optimization is also about drawing in traffic from organic sources, in other words, referring websites. Social media, that one I think you get. If you've been asleep for a decade, you might have missed that term, but let's assume you have been awake. Video, also obvious. Email marketing, I just touched on that. Again, very cost effective. And by email marketing, I really do mean the MailChimp and Constant Contact style email marketing, where you're just broadcasting out to a list. And there's not a whole lot of sophistication required. But when you get to marketing automation, just quick show of hands. How many of you are familiar with the term? Marketing automation? I've got 4 or 5 hands. Okay. So what marketing automation is sort of more intelligence to basically an email engine, but there are also tie-ins to your website. And so what you can do is you can watch someone's behavior, and you can make prescripted, inferred choices based on what they do. In other words, if someone sees an ad on AdWords for shoes, and click on your website, and you're advertising, shoes and shirts, and they click on the shirt link and they go to a shirt page, you can then email them about shirts rather than emailing them about shoes. So you can infer what they're interested in. And then if they receive that email about shirts and they read it and they click on a link about blue shirts, then the next email you send them can be about the sale that you're having on blue shirts rather than red shirts. Get it? It's pretty simple. And then likewise, once you identify someone and if they've allowed for cookies, you can watch their behavior on your website as well. And you can identify, oh, this unique email address saw my ad on AdWords, came to my website, was interested in shirts, was interested in blue shirts. I've sent them 3 emails. Now they've engaged further, come to my website and gone to the blue shirt sale page, scrolled to the bottom. They read the page. They spent 8 seconds on that page. They looked at the pricing and they left. Or they didn't and they purchased. So that's what marketing automation can help set up. It's sophisticated. I have tried twice now to implement it. And not successfully, I'll admit. It turned out to be more work than I wanted. You've got to write emails for all of those scenarios. You've got to figure out, oh, I need a blue shirt page and a red shirt page, and it's a lot of work. Now, if you're up for the work, go for it. It's very much a well-established technology in the marketing space. But I think it needs, at least in my case, a bigger marketing department to make good use of the technology. So if you've got a bigger marketing budget than I do, please consider it. Some more jargon. As you talk about digital marketing, measuring results is a big piece of the puzzle, and I'll evangelize and soapbox on that as we go. It's important to understand the data points that you have access to. Now here's the problem. If you've ever signed up for Google Analytics, you will drown in data. And Facebook is the same way, that you'll drown in results and so forth. So I'm just giving you a handful of terms that I think are useful. Certainly for a do-it-yourself, smaller marketing team, if you're tracking a handful of results and measuring them every single month, I think you'll be in good shape. Web traffic is obvious. How many people are coming to your site? Know that unique visits versus sessions is a distinction there. A session is, hey, I've come to this website 3 or 4 times. That'll count as a session, 3 or 4 sessions. As a unique user, again, if I have my browser cookied, your Google Analytics can track and notice, oh, that's the same person. I'll only count that person once. There's a distinction there. Impressions, just how many eyeballs have either seen a web page or an ad or what have you. And then conversions. Conversions are when someone does something. And that's not very helpful. How do you like that specific definition? A conversion, it depends on your business. So if you're selling shirts, of course, selling a shirt would be a conversion. Someone has done something, but there's other conversions along the way. If someone signs up for an email, or if they like your page on Facebook, all of those are actions. So at the end of the day, you're talking about your customer doing something that you want them to do and measuring those conversions in a way that says, oh, we've got so many impressions, so many people have visited our website. Of those people who have visited our website, here are the ones that are converting early in the conversion process. They're signing up for newsletters and that sort of thing. And then finally, they're making purchases. Hopefully that's clear. A bounce is when someone comes to a piece of content that you've put out there in the universe. Most often it's a web page, and they leave within a few seconds. And by a few, I mean 2 or 3 seconds. So they have ignored your content, they come to your page, they've concluded they're not interested, and they're out. It's important to see that. You could do all the advertising you want, and you're drawing lots and lots of traffic from Google and making them rich in the process. So if you get tons and tons of traffic through your paid pay-per-click campaign on Google, and they're coming to your website and they're leaving within 2 seconds, you've got a problem. You're doing it wrong. Click-through rate, I hope that one's pretty clear. How many impressions have seen this bit of content? And of those impressions, how many people have actually done something I want, converted, clicked on an ad? So click-through rate is one of the ways in which you can measure conversion. Open rate, same idea in email. How many eyeballs have seen or how many people have I sent my email to? And of the people that I've sent my email to, how many have actually seen it in that preview pane, often on the right side of your email client, and spent some amount of time, usually again about 2 or 3 seconds, looking at that email. There are ways to embed pixels and track through HTML when an email is looked at. Now this is becoming an increasingly complicated thing in today's world of privacy concerns and browsers locking down security features and so forth. Subscribers and followers are other things that you need to be measuring. Facebook, YouTube, subscribers, that kind of thing. So when you're talking about digital marketing, again, you're talking about folks who are on individual devices represented by a device. And in order to measure results, you need to know what's going on with the people that are using those devices. What web pages are they seeing? What ads are they seeing? Which links are they clicking? And so forth. And in marketing, we have what's called an attribution problem. There's 2 things going on at the same time that conspire to leave you in the dark. One thing that's going on is you're not going to know exactly what convinced someone to buy your product or service. I might be advertising blue shirts all day long on Google, and then maybe someone does an organic search and clicks on that link. And I get that link coming in, and I'm like, oh, good, my search engine optimization efforts are working. Well, but seeing the ads 8 times may have been what sort of hit the switch in their brain and prompted them to click into your website. Or they might see, a remarketing ad. Have you seen those ads that follow you around the internet after you've visited a website? That's called remarketing. It might be one of those ads that gets the click, but they may have visited your website 6 months prior and just been ready to get back and re-engage. So it's really hard to know which of all these things that we're doing is effective, which all the more reason to get clear about how you're measuring success in these cases. The other attribution problem is privacy. So people are more and more increasingly shutting down their browsers and preventing nasty, evil marketers from tracking their behaviors. And there's a question for all of us as marketers as to whether we want to be really good citizens and sort of participate and respect people's need for privacy, or if we want to try to really intuit, either in a nefarious way or just a, hey, I need more information to be helpful way. Track people's behaviors and anticipate what content they need or what have you. The membrane between sort of manipulation and dark hat, white hat kind of behaviors is a little fuzzy. It's a little gray in the marketing world. In my case, I try to be helpful and I try to understand what people are needing and wanting on our website and give them the information they want. But and I do track how many people have opened email that I've sent to them and so forth. Is that nefarious? I will be honest with you, I'm not quite sure. But it's good data and I track it. So I'll let you sort that out yourselves. So I want to take you through this process, and oftentimes you get sales guys who talk about a customer journey. And here's, hey, we're going to engage with them here, and we're going to hear their objections at this stage of the process, and then we're going to override those objections and concerns, and then we're going to propose and yada, yada. There's a sales pipeline. Marketing has a pipeline too, and I'd encourage you to think about it in those terms. I'm a compulsive shopper, and a few months ago I bought a grill. And I, went online and read about grills and tried to figure out, how many BTUs do I want, how many burners, and what surface area, and what you can get grills with either, sort of sprayed cast iron grill tops, or you can get the ones that are coated in, I don't know what that stuff is. I guess it's stainless steel, right? Anyway, I went with the cast iron version, and do you want propane or gas or charcoal? I got both charcoal and gas because, why buy one grill when you can buy 2? So anyway, I'm a compulsive shopper. The point is this. By the time I got to the grill website and finally was ready for a purchase decision, I went to the website. And in fact, I didn't go to the website. I went to one of those aggregate shopping websites that shows me all the prices for various vendors who are selling grills. And I was like, yep, that's the grill I want. There's the cheapest one. Click. Filled out a form. Credit card. Boom. Sold. Done. I spent 3 minutes on the website from which I purchased my grill. Now, I had consumed all kinds of marketing information prior to that. But again, I want to reinforce that I was the one driving the process. And so as you explore this customer journey, you got to really remember that the customer is in charge. Okay? The 4 stages are pretty easy conceptually to wrap your head around. Awareness is just getting the brand out there. By the way, I don't have my tag. I was going to hold up my tag in that moment, and I did that yesterday in my session as well. There was some point I was making. Anyway, I'm from Codance. There you go. I've just bumped up the awareness of my brand a little bit. So though I'm not flashing a logo, I probably should have flashed a logo and played a little jingle and a few other things to get that awareness going. So awareness is about getting your brand, your identity out there in the market. Consideration is when someone begins the process of evaluating your company. And this can be a very long process or a very short process. If you're selling, Pokemon cards or whatever, my son is totally into Pokemon for some reason. If you're selling Pokemon cards, maybe it's a quick process to consider. It's basically price and quality of the card. He's really super anal about oh, this one's bent and that one's not the. Anyway, I digress. Consideration. So we sell accounting software. As it turns out, accountants are compulsive and conservative and make decisions very slowly, which drives me nuts. So their consideration cycle is much longer than my son's consideration cycle when it comes to Pokemon cards. Conversion. So third step is when they do something you want them to do. And you're going to spend time bouncing between conversion and consideration. So they come to your website, they sign up for an email address or whatever. Or they like you on Facebook, that's a little bit of a conversion. Then they follow you on YouTube, that's more of a conversion. And then finally they get into your purchasing funnel. And depending on if you're like a B2B with us, our conversion measures are, do we have their email address? And have they reached out to us to engage with sales? Those are our conversion metrics. And we have other stuff like, have they watched a video on YouTube and so forth. But it really does vary by business, and the degree to which you'll flop between conversion and consideration will vary. And then finally, the last stage is one that oftentimes marketers skip over. They're like, hey, I got a customer, thank you for your money. Done. They stop talking to that person. They should not, because what do you remember from my definition of digital marketing? You exist your customers are a network. It's not just a one-on-one relationship with an individual to whom you're marketing. This individual is talking to that individual, and on you go, okay? So you've got to remember that there's a network there, so when someone becomes a customer, you've got a wonderful opportunity to keep marketing to them and to explain in some form or another why they should become a fan. Go Rockies. Who likes baseball? It's not enough of you. Have any of you been to a baseball game who didn't raise your hands? Have you been to a baseball game in the last 10 years? There's more. And the baseball game didn't sell you on baseball? What the hell? What is wrong with you people? There is singing in baseball. Can't say that about football. There's beer. There is beer at football, but it can get kind of mean. Soccer. I went to a soccer game with my wife in Brazil, and they have these 6-inch sheets of plexiglass walling off the fans from one team to another. That's not baseball. This is actually a funny story. Forgive me, I'm going to digress. I took Amanda to her first baseball game, and we just, because whatever, we ended up sitting right behind the dugout for the opposing team. And, good seats and so forth, they were just cheaper on the opposing team side, right? So we're sitting there, and she's like, wait a minute, this is the other team. I thought we were rooting for the Rockies. I'm like, we are rooting for the Rockies. What are we doing over here? We're going to get beat up. She was really freaked out. I was like, that's not baseball. Baseball is awesome. There's hot dogs. It's a chill, kind of friendly game. Am I selling this to you? I hope so. I think you should go to a baseball game. And if you go to a baseball game, root for the Rockies. I don't care who else they're playing, just root for the Rockies. We'll get there, Charlie. So obviously, I'm demonstrating what happens when you get to an influence stage, right? You want your customers doing what I just did. And by the way, I was yes, of course, I'm giving a talk on digital marketing. We all get that. But I love going to Rockies games. I would encourage you to do it. Very sincerely, I'm being an influencer. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to walk through these stages with you. On the right side of my slides are the mechanics, are the tools that you're going to use at this stage. And on the left side are the concepts, okay? And the question before you all got in was, am I going to post these slides up after the talk? Yes, I promise. After I've gone to the bar, I will post these slides. All right, so awareness, build your brand, get your word out. You need multiple touch points. If you only have a website, you're not doing digital marketing. You're not really either doing marketing either. People need their sort of stats in the marketing world. Is it 6 or 7 or 8 touch points before your brand will sink in? It's more than 5, less than 10. And they need it in different mediums. So they need to come to your website. They need to see your brand on Google search results. They need it in text. They need it in pictures. They need it in video. If you've got a jingle, who knows the HBO with the static? There's a reason why Netflix and HBO and all those guys do the little sound in addition to their brand, because you need those multiple inputs in order to really get it, okay? And you only have a few seconds. There's a reason why websites nowadays are very light on text. And they have these big, quick scrolling pages with lots of images and a little paragraph of text here and there. That's because marketers and web designers have learned that they only have a few seconds to build awareness. And then you're going to move on and do other things. And you might stay, you might drill in deeper, but now you're in a different stage. You're in consideration. Now, when someone is engaged with your brand and learning about your brand and so forth, consuming information, they're in charge. They're the ones that are driving the bus. When you're building awareness, you get to put your logo out there, and you hope it's nice. You'll notice that the Codance logo is purple, and so too is the Rockies. I wonder. Anyway, I digress again. With consideration, the ball game changes, so to speak. You need to get exactly. I got a wry grin out of that one. I'm working it. So during consideration, the customer's in charge. They're going to ask you for what they want, and this is the time when you provide lots of detail. Remember the grill story? This is where I wanted the stats, and I wanted to know, like, okay, how do I care about BTUs? As it turns out, by the way, the way to rank a good grill is the distribution of heat. If the corner is as hot as the middle, it's a good grill. I learned that. And I would not have learned that in a 6-second quick scan of a web page. Because the Weber website, I bought a Weber, because the Weber website went into all these details because I kept clicking and digging, that's what I learned, and I made a better informed buying decision. Okay, so educate and engage. Ask questions and answer questions. An FAQ page is a great way to help with this. Be helpful, make it easy. Don't hide your pricing information. What's the first thing, second thing you look for when you're shopping for something on a website? You look for price, right? The first is this what I'm looking for? The second is, how much does it cost? If you hide your pricing information, call sales for a quote. That's bad marketing. I don't care what business you're in. I think that's bad marketing. Be helpful. Make it easy. So you're on your website, you're tracking social media followers. Consideration is also, again, interwoven with conversions of sorts. Are people subscribing to your email? Are they watching videos? How long are they watching the videos? If I post 8-minute videos up and they're leaving after a minute, I've got some work to do. So how are they engaging? You may have heard the term engagement. Engagement, consideration, those are two terms you'll hear interchanged in the marketing space. So then, on to conversion. I've made this point. I hope it's clear to you guys. There are multiple stages. You might take someone from a simple Facebook-like to a subscription to your channel on YouTube to an actual email subscription, then at some point they may convert and purchase and become a customer. It's up to your business as to how you measure conversion. Offering, in the case of a B2B, offering gated content and performing a transaction, a valuable transaction, in exchange for an email address is a great way to stair-step in the conversion process. One of the mistakes that I've certainly made in the past, and I've seen other B2B companies make, is they work on their awareness stuff, they put out a bunch of information, and then the only conversion they've got is become a customer. And you don't go from sort of knowing someone and sort of being an acquaintance to getting engaged, unless you're in the TV shows these days, like The Bachelor or whatever. That seems like a hard way to get married. This is definitely a hard way to do marketing. Don't go from awareness and a little bit of consideration to, okay, please make a purchase. Unless, again, you're selling something easy like Pokemon cards or shoes or shirts. But even still, that incremental step is important. So help your customers do stair steps in this process. And then the right customers are important as well. You remember the point I made about, okay, you're advertising on Google. You've got Claris Developer as your search term, and you're bidding like crazy to get as much traffic for Claris Developer. They come to your website, and you sell shoes. Not so good traffic. And so what you're doing is you're drawing in the wrong customers. So define who your customers are and appeal to them, and try to ascertain how well folks are transitioning from conversion to conversion to conversion. You want a smooth growth curve there. Get it? And then I think, almost regardless of what kind of business you're in, one of the natural steps in that process is getting someone's email address and identifying them as a person. And you can do all kinds of sneaky things in the world, or what have you. I don't want to ascribe a moral judgment to it, but you can take an email address and do all kinds of searches against databases that are available, and you can learn more about folks. Is that right or wrong? I leave you to sort out that. Again, as a business, we're trying to do the right thing and operate well, but data is available. I didn't touch on this. So I think it's pretty obvious. Social media responses, e-commerce, these are easy ways to measure conversions. A/B testing, if you haven't heard that term, all it is, very simple concept. Just put up one version of, say, a landing page that you're trying to well, there's another term I'm throwing out there. A landing page is a tuned single page that is aimed at a specific keyword. So Claris Developer, here's my landing page. It talks about being a Claris Developer, contact sales. That's a landing page. And yeah, you can usually click the logo on a landing page and go to the main evergreen primary website of a business. So on a landing page, A/B testing allows you to tune how effective this page is. Here's a page with my blue shirt as 4 images. Here's a page of my blue shirt with 1 big image. And in these photos, the shirts are not on a model, and in this image, the shirt is on a model. And you can use landing page engines. Ubounce is one of them that we happen to use that'll serve up these pages alternating as traffic comes to them, and you can test the response of which landing page is most effective. Do that for a month, figure out, oh, the page with the model is better. Great. Get rid of the one with the 4 images and put up a male model versus a female model, or what have you. A/B testing. Live chat. We've come to websites, bottom right corner, there's a chat mechanism there. It used to be that was only for support, and then recently, last few years, it's turned into, hey, you got questions about our product or service? Ask us. And it's more and more commonly understood that there can be a delay there. And there are services that you can subscribe to that will ping you in email or notify you on your phone, hey, you've got a customer waiting in live chat. It doesn't have to be that you park an intern at a desktop watching the database working. You get notified and you can communicate with someone via mobile phone if you're out buying groceries or whatever, answer their questions. This is an awesome way to establish a stair step on conversion. They're really in dialogue with you. And what better way to convince someone of your product or service having merit than talking to them, allowing them to ask questions in natural language in real time. We haven't done it yet on our website, but I'm really thinking about it. All right, so you've got them through conversion. They gave you their money. They became a customer. Now it's time to turn them into an influencer. Say it with me. Go Rockies. Go Rockies. Thank you. All right. Luke Rochester, this is where in his talk he does the whole, like, I don't know, Zuni yell or whatever. Anyway, that's not me. Go Rockies. All right, so time to generate some influence. Ask. Just ask your customers, hey, and in a B2B world, I will do this with our customers. Hey, would you mind referring us on to someone else? My business card is good for a drink. Pass them out, whatever. So ask for referrals. Ask for influencers. Focus on the individual. So I'm not going to hand out my business cards willy-nilly and say, hey, good for a free drink on the back or whatever. No, I'm going to go to Scott Lindbergh at Quell, whom I know very well and went to his daughter's wedding, and ask him to pass out my business cards. So it's a very individualistic thing. Influencers online, same thing. Make sure that you reciprocate and thank them for posts or links or good comments. If someone leaves a comment on Facebook, respond, thank them. Be in dialogue with them. This is how you turn customers into influencers. And then again, remember that you're in a network. Share resources, give them tools. If they want t-shirts or to wear, the Rockies, baseball figured this out a long time ago. Forget all my fans running around in purple hats and purple shirts, then that's going to help my brand building awareness efforts. So share resources. Public relations is obviously old school, but maybe it's time to think about reaching out to a PR firm and seeing what they can do for you. If you get one not biased, not paid article written about your company, it'll really do wonders for your credibility, your business. Google will recognize that, oh, here's a publication in your industry that is linking to your website. That link is highly, highly valuable. So I'd encourage you to think about PR. Let's see. Nurture, email campaigns. We've talked about that a good bit. Influence. So influence can come in two flavors, right? They're enthusiasts, and then they're the ones that hate the Yankees. Do not go to a Yankees game. I know I told you to go to a baseball game and always root for the Rockies, but if you really just are like, whatever, maybe I'll go to a baseball game. If it's a Yankees game, don't go. Okay? So influence can come in two ways. And you need to be prepared for that. You need to understand amongst your teammates how to respond. Respond quickly, respond respectfully. Recognize that they're not going to be fans. Not everybody loves me or Codens. That's okay. I sleep at night reasonably well. I don't know. I want you all to like me. You guys all like me. It's other people that don't. Anyway, trolls. Be ready for them, and don't try to argue. That's bad. I hope that's obvious. I could do a whole session on how not to respond to negative influencers online, and trying to fight with them is not a way to go. All right, so we've talked about the customer journey. We're taking folks from awareness to consideration to conversion to influence. And as you're doing all this, as you're building your engine, you remember the metaphor I opened with? You're building an engine that works. You got to measure results. You got to know what's working, what's not. These 8 stats are where I'd begin. So if we don't have huge marketing budgets and data can be overwhelming. Google Analytics anyway, it's a challenge to interpret and learn how Google Analytics works. Start tracking these 8 stats each month. You can even use, dare I say it, a spreadsheet to do this if you wish. That'll get you started. I think these are obvious. Social media views versus engagement. Views are obviously just how many people saw my social media page or content or what have you, how many people saw the Twitter feed go by. Engagement is when they do something. So there's a conversion there. They've clicked or they've liked or they've retweeted or what have you. And then subscribe versus purchase conversions. Again, that depends on your business. Friends and influencers are really hard to measure. And it really depends on your business. In our case, because we're a B2B and because we have customers with whom we have personal relationships for many, many years, I just simply measure friends and influencers by going into our CRM and clicking a checkbox that says, I know that person to be an influencer. I don't try yet to do it online. And I know this talk is about digital marketing, so forgive me for that. But again, I told you there was a little bit of spin in the title. There you go. Depending on your business, define how you want to measure that. All right, so I've given you all these concepts. What is digital marketing? Device-driven. What was the second one? Dialogue. You're paying attention. I'm so proud. I'm so proud. And it's a network, right? And then we've walked through the customer journey. Now how do we put it into practice? I come back to the metaphor, you're building an engine. You're never done. Websites are never done. This idea of like, hey, I'm going to go hire a designer and spend $1 million or whatever building a website, and then, oh, thank God that's over. It's not over. You got to keep at it. You're building an engine. These are your tools. I've covered that. Website interacts with web advertising, search engine. You've got email going on, video, and so forth. And then social media is obviously just an amalgam of all of the social media services. Now, when I showed you this diagram earlier, I didn't even touch on the one in the middle. Content. You've heard it said, content is king. I have very bad news for you all. I'm sorry. It's bad news for me too. You are now all in the publishing industry. You are publishers. There's really no way around this. You can't offload it to a marketing agency if you have lots of budget for marketing. You need to generate content in order to deal with these tools. Content is king. You've got to write blog posts. You've got to produce videos. You've got to figure out how to, post tweets on Twitter and put up Facebook pages. It's got to be both visual, text. You need good writers on your team or in your network of people with whom you're working. You are now publishers. And if you don't like it, sorry, I didn't make the rules. So content really isn't king. Content is fuel for your engine. It's really important that you get this. So if you can't produce good content, then you're not doing digital marketing. And so step one in this process is get your content engine working. Just get to the point where you can do good writing, you can produce some of the assets that I'm talking about. I'd encourage you, and people with big marketing budgets do this formally. Here's our writer or what have you. Here's our brand owner. In your smaller business, if that's the case, I would encourage you to appoint someone who is the editor-in-chief of your tone, who can gauge, yep, that's on brand, if you will, or that's not. We need to, and tone is both writing and visual presentation and so forth. We have a color palette at Codance, so the stuff we put out is going to be within that color palette, and we tend to favor lightly lit photography rather than dark lit photography, that kind of stuff. And then, the two bullets in the middle talk about delivery, talk about tone, talk about images, and so forth. The last one is really sort of existential. You've got to figure out what it is that is special and unique about your business. In the case of Codance, we have both accounting, analytics, and finance experts on staff, as well as FileMaker developers. So that's our thing. We talk about financial literacy a lot. We encourage our clients to go down the path of breaking financial data and accounting data out of its silo and plug it into the rest of the business. That's our special sauce. What's your special sauce? Why would someone hire your company over Codance? You got to answer that question. What's the because? I recently went to a seminar that talked about this. It was really kind of fun. The guy that was speaking was in charge of marketing for Coors Beer, Coors Light. And he was talking about it. He's like, all right, well, we went down the list of, we're looking for why would you buy Coors over Bud Light or Miller Lite or whatever. I'm not a beer drinker, but anyway. So he was explaining this. He's like, okay, well, the sort of fun-loving, goofy, quirky brand, well, that's Budweiser with the Clydesdales and the polar bears and the, whatnot. And let's see, the chill, relax on a beach, and you know what beer I'm talking about, right? Corona. So that's the chill, relax beer. Huh, okay, tastes great, less filling. We can all chant that slogan, so that's Miller. So what's left? What was left, according to this guy, it's hilarious, was cold. Apparently their customers want cold beer. Now, let's think about this. We're engineers, right? Open a fridge, put 2 beers next to each other, leave them there for an hour. Which one's colder? They're the same. So how do you convince someone that I want Coors because it's colder than some other? So they did this whole marketing campaign, right? Anytime you see a Coors Light ad, there will be snow. And they will, and in fact, you remember the parody that Budweiser did, or was it Miller? They brought the hops. This was during the Super Bowl. They brought the hops in a big barrel, and they marched over kingdoms. And so anyway, when they got to the Coors Light Castle, it was in a snowy wilderness. Even Budweiser understood the marketing that Coors was all about. Their identity is all about cold. And if you go into the store and you buy a Coors Light can, it'll turn blue if it's the right color or the right temperature. And if it gets too warm, the blue will go away. So they own cold. That's their because. Anyway, I find that a fun story to tell. Forgive me, I digress. All right, so content. That's number 2. Or number 1. Number 1 is content. Get good at writing. Get good at images. Think about your because. What is unique about your business? If you can tell someone what's unique about your business, you've gotten started. Step 2, website. Get your website in order. Look around at your competition because your customers will. They'll go from website to website and they'll compare. So how do we stack up? How does our website look? Is it contemporary or not? And then an SEO audit, search engine optimization audit, it looks for things like how long do pages load? Do I have images that are too large? Do I have keyword problems? Is my website responsive or not? This is what an SEO audit can do. And as good a developer as I may be, I'm not, I'm impatient, but anyway, as good a developer as I may be, you miss things. There are a lot of details to building a website. So use tools to do regular audits, and you're never done. You've got to do them frequently to see how your website is structured to both support users who come to a website. An SEO audit does 2 things. It measures how well your website is performing and presenting its information to users, and it also will measure how well it is set up to tell a search engine like Google what's going on. In other words, are your tags and so forth appropriately set up so that Google and their analytics tool can tell what your web page is all about. So an SEO audit will help you with both. There are tools out there. Moz.com is one. Alexa, not to be confused with the digital assistant. Alexa, also owned by Amazon, by the way. Alexa.com is a good way to see how you rank against competitors and so forth. Then another thing that Google looks for, when Google places your website on its search engine results, it's looking for 3 things. One is the first obvious one. Is the content on your site relevant to the keywords for which you're searching? So if your search term is FileMaker Developer, is FileMaker Developer mentioned on your website? That's an easy one. Second, the other thing that Google looks for is, does your site perform well? Does it load quickly? Page load times are the most important search engine optimization stat there is. If your website is slow, you'll go down in rankings on Google, period. So get that one right first and then worry about the rest. The third thing Google looks for is authority, and the way they gauge authority is incoming links. Are other sites that perform well for the search term FileMaker Developer also linking to your site, and are you linking to their site? Are you part of the collective authority, relevant authority on FileMaker? Okay? So those 3 things. Make sure your web page talks about what you're trying to draw in. Make sure the mechanics of the page are good, loads quickly, is set up to be responsive. You've got alt tags for people with disabilities so that readers can talk about what the content is and so forth. Google checks all of that. And then thirdly, are there incoming links? And so you should measure referring sites as part of the the performance metrics that you measure for this stuff. The other thing that Google checks is how often is your website refreshed? How regularly are you adding new content? Google wants new content on your website, and by the way, so too do humans. And so if you come back to a company's website time and time again and it hasn't changed, you're going to conclude, potentially wrongly, that that company is stale and not doing anything, and maybe they're going to go out of business tomorrow or something. And meanwhile, the company is rocking and doing great things and just hasn't had time to update their website. That could be. But the presumption is that your business is stale if your website is stale. So get it on a publishing schedule. Do-it-yourself search engine optimization. So I touched on the diagnostic tools that you can use to go to your website and see if there's a problem. There's stuff you can do yourself without being a professional SEO expert. Define your target keywords. Get clear about what you're trying to draw in. Claris developers on my list today. I've got some homework to do after DevCon. Thanks, Claris. Gee whiz. New logos to put everywhere, new links. Anyway, we're going to all go chasing down. Like the bidding war on Claris developers starting right now. I'll fight you for it. Anyway, build content around those keywords, solicit incoming links from other sites, register. This is an important one, the last bullet, or not last, second to last. There are all kinds of directories. Google is not the only game in town. There are all kinds of directories that are industry specific. There are a number in the FileMaker world, the partner listing on FileMaker.com. Make sure you're listed on it. If you're not, just right now, go do that. Claris.com, I suppose. Make sure that your business shows up on Google Maps. There's a way to register with Google for that. As people search, they're going to try to figure out if you're a real company or not. And sure enough, I don't know why, but geography continues to be one of the key deciding factors, contributing factors to whether someone hires a B2B business. So I need to make sure that I show up on the map in Colorado at least, where we serve our customers. We actually serve customers all over, so I make sure that we've got offices all over. And then the last one I think is really worth drilling in on, which is I think people spend a lot of energy trying to outwit Google. I'm not smarter than even one Google engineer, let alone thousands of them. They're going to win that fight every single time. And I know that there's entire industries out there and people that have made very good livings telling you that they can outwit Google and you can rank higher in search results if you just do this or that or the other thing, and they're right. They're totally right. Those are experts. They're good at it. I'm not so good at it. I would encourage you, at least for the purposes of keeping your anxiety levels to a minimum, just write for humans. If you would read the web page in question about your business, about your service, and find it helpful, that's going to get you 98% of the way there. Social media. All right, so now it's time. You've figured out how to become a publisher. You're generating content. Next step in the process, make sure your website is in order. Third step in the process, do your own sort of do-it-yourself search engine optimization. Use some tools to diagnose and fix what you can. For example, reduce the size of your images. I want you all to promise me, after you go back to the hotel room tonight, in whatever state you happen to be in, I want you to sit down in Google Analytics. You can run a routine to see how large your image sizes are. It'll rank them. This one's 500K, this one's 200K, whatever. And then figure out a way to trim those image sizes without degrading quality inappropriately. Okay, go do that. That's step 3, do-it-yourself search engine optimization. Step 4, now that I've got my content, now I've got my website in order, now I've tuned that website to play well with others, now leverage that content and go to social media. And at least set up a branded page on Facebook and LinkedIn and so forth. And I'd encourage you to talk to your folks as well in your business about social media. This is where the network of customers that are out there, well, you've also got another layer to this. There's a network of employees in your world. And the membrane between personal life and professional life is gone these days. There's no membrane anymore. And so you need to talk about a social media policy, and you need to do it mindfully in keeping with your values as a business or as a team. There's not a one-size-fits-all policy that I can just hand you. I'd love it if someone would hand me one that was perfect. So we go to our team, and in our case at Codance, we go to our team, we encourage social media participation, and we say, hey, if we're not comfortable with something you're posting, then we'll let you know. And if that happens too often, we'll talk about it. And at some point, we will ask, hey, let's keep our two identities online separate. Now, we haven't had to go that step with anyone. It's been fine. But you need to at least set the ground rules and talk about it, because otherwise you might get, I was at a company where a significant political debate erupted in public forums between two employees. That was a challenge to figure out how do you manage that. So anyway, talk to your people about social media and find the right balance between respecting free speech. But you've got to understand, again, you're not in charge. Just as your customers and their network are driving the dialogue, your teammates, your employees are driving the dialogue too. We don't have the power in that world anymore. Use a tool. Hootsuite is what we use. You can create a social media post and broadcast up to all the various platforms with which you interact. It'll save you time, and you'll get statistics back. That's a good thing. Get into a regular cadence of posting. If you post once or twice on Twitter and then you're like, oh yeah, that was 3 months ago, then you're doing it wrong. Don't try. If that's where you are, then just own it and move on. At the point at which you're ready to tackle social media, know that you're on for a daily ride, at least a few times a week. And then I distribute the load. I encourage more than just the marketing person to do this. It's got to be everybody. All right, so you've gone through, you got your website going, you got your social media going. Now it's time to use email. And I harped on it in the beginning. Email is one of the cheapest ways to build awareness, build consideration, and drive conversions. The only hard part is content, but I told you that was step one. So you've already got the content by now. So as long as you've got content coming in at least once a month, or not once a month, once a quarter. I think we mail out stuff once a quarter just because we're getting our sea legs in this area. This is very much a practice what I preach kind of deal here. Get onto a regular publishing schedule and bite off what you can chew. In our case, we're not even trying to segment our lists all that much. We're just handing folks off we're handing email off to our entire list in one hit. Now we're right on the threshold of saying, no, these customers are for this. In our case, we have accounting customers who are really dedicated professional accounting folks, and then we have FileMaker developers of various shapes and sizes, and they want different information, and we get that. So we'll part those lists. And MailChimp and Constant Contact and so forth, the sort of do-it-yourselfer platforms that are relatively inexpensive can totally do this. Look at, again, stats and results. And then just as I described A/B testing for web pages, landing pages, you can do the same with email. Send this version of this email to half my list, send that version of the email to the other half of the list. This version of the email has got lots of big images and not a lot of text. This version of the email has only text and some links and stuff. See which performs better. And then I would very strongly encourage you, don't even try to buy lists and to send unsolicited email out. Yes, you can do it, and there are some new services these days that we've experimented with even, I'll admit, where you send hey, just a one-on-one direct email to someone that you don't happen to know, but they hit a database. And anyway, it's a long, long story. There was a reason why this sounded like a good idea. It's not. So anyway, don't spam people. Ask for permission. I would encourage that. Let's all be good citizens in this network where people are talking about your business together, and you're trying to just as FileMaker in today's world needs to be a good citizen in the technology world and use proper APIs and so forth to interconnect with other apps, We need to respect security and privacy and so forth in that world. So too do we in the marketing world. Then track your results. This is step 6. So I've taken you from website to social media to email. This, I think, is the time at which you need to really start tracking these results, put them in a spreadsheet or a database or what have you, measure them each month, and then what you can do is you can start to see where the problems lie. So, hey, we're spending all this, it's the obvious example I gave you earlier. Hey, we're spending all this money on AdWords, we're getting a bunch of traffic, that's awesome. So high impressions, high conversions, they come to our website and they're bouncing. They're leaving after 1 or 2 seconds. So we've either got the audience wrong or there's a problem with our web page. There was a while back, this is years ago, I was at Macromedia, and we were advertising Flash. And we were trying to get people, hi there. We were trying to get people to buy Flash, and we had this massive, that is creepy, Casper the Friendly Ghost. So we had this massive Flash movie on the page, and did all kinds of animation and so forth. It took like 10 minutes to load or something, and we couldn't figure out why there were no conversions happening. Well, sure enough, we just had too big a media asset on that page. Simple fix. We fixed it, boom, conversions started coming in. So measure your results and see where the problems are, and this is where the engine bit comes in. So if you're measuring your results and you're going, okay, let me fix this problem, then it'll move, right? It's theory of constraints. Any of you read The Goal? So once you fix this problem here, then figure out where the next problem is, fix that, and you'll get better and better at this. You can increment through it. These, again, are the 8 stats that I'd encourage you to look into. Trivia question for you. So obviously, Google is the first most used search engine in our world today. Anyone know the rough approximate metric these days? It's like 98%. It's ridiculous. I mean, not really that bad. It's like, but it is above 90. Bing, Yahoo is in there. But what's the second most searched? What is the second most used search engine on our planet today? Anyone know? Danny knows because he's heard this speech before. What's your guess? Facebook? That's not bad. That's not bad. It's not Facebook. And it's not Bing and Yahoo. YouTube. Daisy got it. Yeah, it's totally YouTube, which kind of blows my mind. So another stat that I would add up here is video watches and subscribers if you're doing video. But yeah, and again, I want to reiterate, if you're not thinking about video because you're a small business and they're hard to produce, great. I think we've got a little breathing room, but not a lot. So this is a report that I look at every single month. It measures web traffic growth in yellow, and in green is lead generation, so inquiries into sales. I didn't give you the numbers because, I'm a jerk. And you couldn't read them in the back anyway. But I find this incredibly helpful for me to gauge at a snap really quickly, how is my marketing doing? What's going on with my web traffic? How many leads am I getting? Then I can drill in and look at other stats about bounce rate and things of that nature. I encourage you to treat this stuff like math. Now, step 7, I cheated. I told you this was do-it-yourself, but not free. This is the point at which I would consider hiring some help. When you're ready to start buying AdWords ads, and you'll notice this progression that I'm giving you is intentional. I began with do content, get your website done, figure out SEO on your own for a while, social media, email, measure results. If you do all that, then you can kick in with now hiring somebody to do an AdWords campaign. I've seen a lot of small businesses just start with the AdWords campaign. It's not going to be as effective. If you don't have your whole world set up prior to buying ads and giving money to Google, you're not going to perform as well. And you need the discipline of having some stats to look at prior to pulling in AdWords and pay-per-click so that you can have a baseline that measures your results. So at the point at which you're ready to start spending money on AdWords, hire an expert, it's a challenge. Now, it is a Dutch auction, and technical people can figure it out. I ran our own AdWords campaigns for years. I wasn't as effective at it as a professional, and I saw a significant bump in results when I finally got around to hiring an agency. And in our case, I'll just be very candid with you. We spend about $2,000 or so, it depends on month, on AdWords every month, and our agency costs us about $700, $800, depending on what we're doing. So it is totally affordable. You don't have to go to an agency and think, oh my God, this is going to be $1 million. There are professionals out there who work with small businesses and are totally okay with that. And one of the things that professionals are going to know is that the common sense keywords are not necessarily the best. There's lots of lessons, you could do a whole session on good pay-per-click strategy. But one of the takeaways that I had was we had it all queued up, like FileMaker developer, FileMaker consultant. We were bidding so that we could be first on the page. This is the campaign I set up on my own. And sure enough, the company that I hired did an analysis, and they said, no, drop your bids down. If you get the third spot for FileMaker developer, you'll perform less well, but your dollars will go further. So it makes sense to do the third position for this particular keyword based on the pattern of bidding. And that made sense. And long tail keywords that are much more specific, FileMaker accounting solution. That is a keyword that I bid against all the time. And I don't get a lot of clicks. There aren't many searches, like literally just a handful of searches in a month for that particular keyword. But if someone clicks that link and lands on my website, what are the odds they're going to be a good customer? Really high. I want that traffic. So long tail, very specific keywords can perform much better, potentially, than more broad terms that just generate more traffic. And as much as it galls them to have to realize I'm not in the business of paying Google. I am, but it's not my primary business. I want to touch on Google a little bit and Facebook as well. So this page is less relevant as of a few days ago, but I've done a search term for FileMaker up at the top. Notice there's an ad for a really awesome consulting company there at the top. Go Codens, go Rockies. And then we've got a bunch of stuff from the FileMaker website in the middle. Got a bunch of stuff from FileMaker and Wikipedia over on the right. And then we've got, and then we've got questions at the bottom. What do you not see on this page? Do you get it? Organic search results. You remember when you do a search on Google and you get a few ads at the top and they were bright yellow so that you could tell which the ads were, and then a whole list of organic search results. But that's not what you get these days. And I'd encourage you after this talk to be more mindful of this, because it kind of snuck up on me. I don't know if you have the same experience. But what's happening, and this is particularly true for Facebook, is that Facebook and Google and other large tech companies like them are trying to own your experience. In the past, Google would say, here are the results. Go to that website and see what they have to say about that search term we just gave you. Now, notice the questions at the bottom. These things were generated by Google, and there's not some editor sitting down and writing what questions one should answer on Google these days. What's going on is they're just pulling this content from elsewhere and trying to understand sort of what's popular and so forth. So it's recycled content, but they're still presenting it. They're still trying to own the experience. And so paid advertising, pay-per-click, is going to become increasingly important. Unfortunately, I have bad news. Your publishers, and the second bad news is paid advertising, pay-per-click, is going to become increasingly important to all of us. Search engine optimization, less so. It's still very, very, very important, but it'll sort of proportionally become less important. You need to be aware of that. And just as an aside, how much does it piss you guys off that the last question on this screen is FileMaker a relational database? It's been 20 years. Come on, people, get it. Drives me nuts. Anyway, all right, pro SEO. There are professionals out there who will come in and really dial in your website and really root out the technical problems with your website. Those guys, again, same kind of deal. They'll work for a couple grand for a small business, and then it scales up like crazy from there. But this is well worth considering. We work with an SEO firm, and they tune our website. More importantly, they monitor it. The other day, I posted a blog post, and I forgot to optimize the image. I just posted a big image, and they caught it, sent me a notification within a few hours. Took it down, optimized the image, put it back, problem solved. An SEO firm can help with that. The other thing that an SEO firm will often do, not always, but often, is augment your content. So I told you you guys are publishers. I'm not changing my mind. You still can't offload that to another team outside your company. You got to do all that work. But then an SEO firm can take that content and repackage it in interesting ways. They can do videos or infographics, or they can help distribute the effort of reaching out to other websites and getting referring links in and so forth. Marketing automation I touched on earlier. This is where it gets expensive. Pardot, Marketo, there are a number of others. HubSpot is getting into the marketing automation game. My experience, after having done Acton is another one, in my experience working with a marketing automation platform, it takes work, lots of work. It's like, hey, I want to build a FileMaker database. I'm going to be done on a Saturday, right? No. Yes, you'll be done on a Saturday. The question is which Saturday, right? So marketing automation takes work. Be prepared for that, and it takes money. Just to get a tool in place, in my experience, you're looking at least 20 or 30 grand per year. They're subscription-based. So depends on when the right time for your business is for that. So that's it. That's the process. Create your content. Get good at that. Get your website in order. Do it yourself SEO. Once you're happy with that, get onto social media. You've got content already in the pipeline, so distribute it. Same thing. Distribute via email. Get it out there. Then let's do math. Track your results. Establish a baseline. You'll have a baseline of what can I do on my own? Then hire some professionals or build some in-house expertise on AdWords and pay-per-click, and then get into professional grade SEO. And again, you guys are engineers. You could hire someone to do this. It just takes time and work. In my world, it was more economical to turn to outside folks who have that expertise. And then lastly, marketing automation. You do all that with digital marketing, again, device-centric. It's a dialogue driven by your customer, and it's a network. Your customers are talking amongst themselves. You do all that, and you'll sell tickets. Thanks. I'm terribly out of time, I believe. I am. I'm terribly out of time, but I've got time for questions if you guys have any. Please. Hey.
How effective do you find social media when it comes to actually bringing you a paying client?
It depends. Social media. Yeah, so social media is good. So if you've got the content and there's no reason not to just shove it up on Facebook, great. But as a B2B business, LinkedIn is far more effective, and LinkedIn is a good channel for us. I also belong to a private network, Vistage. They're sort of, if you've not heard of them, Vistage is a collection of business owners and executives, and they've got a community site. I do a lot of work on there. It's not strictly speaking social media. It's sort of a private social media, if you will. But that is a very effective channel for us. In the back there. Yeah. Yeah, really good point. There are lots of tools. I didn't even try to come up with a list of resources of all the various tools out there. You've just mentioned Chrome plugins that are absolutely very useful. And there are some that will analyze your code as well as looking at competitor sites. Thanks for that.
What about
Intern, it depends on if they can write. But one of the things that I do with interns is bring them in and ask them to write about their experience as interns. That they can write about, and that's great stuff for our blog. So in terms of taking care of this, I think you can get pretty far. You don't need a super duper expert. You've got to be the expert in terms of what's unique about your business and get the messaging right and get your brand dialed in. But then, yeah, you don't need your rock star engineers spending time on this necessarily. Though the more that your best folks participate on social media, the more credible and the more relevant your information will be. People will come to you for expert contributions. So it's a mix. Any other questions? No? Thanks for hanging in there with me. I hope it was helpful. Thank you. Go Rockies. Go to a baseball game. It's really fun. Take a friend.